I know a lot of us, both the creators on this channel as well as our audience, got to see a ton of stuff that they were not supposed to see at younger ages. I sure as hell wasn't supposed to see Species in theaters as a 10-year-old, but here we are. Thanks, Mom. Where it got really interesting, really outside of the box thinking, was when someone decided to take those not made for kids properties and make them for kids. Rambo, Toxic Avenger, We'll See You Soon, Buddy, Swamp Thing, Starship Troopers, and yes, RoboCop were somehow inexplicably turned into children's cartoon shows. Let's fire up Detroit's finest for not one, but two attempts at making one of the 80s most violent and inappropriate properties into Saturday morning cartoons and see what happened to these RoboCop shows. Kids' cartoons have been big forever. Now we have streaming services that either premiere new ones or just show entire seasons of ones that already aired, but for a long time it was either movie theater shorts or specific time blocks, most famously of the Saturday morning variety. Saturday mornings could have a whole block because there was no school to take their viewership away from the TVs, and they could get more ad revenue with more shows. The kidization of adult properties started with Rambo, which decided not to take the bleak PTSD of the first movie, but instead the action-packed fighting of the second movie and make it into a G.I. Joe-like property called Rambo: The Force of Freedom in 1986. A little while later, we would get a second stab at this, specifically with his little data thing that comes out of his hand, when RoboCop, maybe one of the least friendly kid properties, would be made into a cartoon show called, well, RoboCop. This is actually hilarious on two fronts, as one, the movie had to be toned down several times to avoid an X rating, great for kids, and the fact that marketing and advertising was a big satirical part of the movie, and here they were making a cash-in cartoon on that very thing.
The situation is now under control.
RoboCop was produced by Marvel of all things, with help from Orion Pictures, who was responsible for the movie as well. The show was actually part of this weird block of TV called the Marvel Action Universe, which included RoboCop, Dino Riders, and the pilot episode of what would eventually become the beloved X-Men 90s TV series. It would also fill out its time by running older series from earlier in the decade like Dungeons & Dragons, The Incredible Hulk, and Spider-Man, among others. This block, like the cartoons we're discussing today, didn't last long though, only running from 1988 to 1991. RoboCop would only end up being 12 episodes, even though it was commissioned for 13. That 13th episode was scrapped and turned into the pilot X-Men TV show, and even if that didn't come to fruition right away, it became the one we all know and love with the absolute banger of a theme song. That also gave us the sequel series recently that you should absolutely go watch. RoboCop the animated series takes place in a bizarro alternate universe. It still follows Alex Murphy, who was badly damaged by a gang and turned into RoboCop. RoboCop has the same captain and partner in Ann Lewis, is a product of OCP and deals with other attempts at peacekeeping.
Attention! Do not panic! Normal traffic will soon be restored.
The OCP is run by the Old Man, and RoboCop operates in the city of Old Detroit. What changed, what had to change really, are that the guns were turned into laser weapons, the violence on humans was way toned down and supplemented with a huge influx of robots, and it follows a kid TV show format. Oh, and Clarence Boddicker didn't die and actually comes back in the series finale that we never get a resolution on, but no big deal. RoboCop also moves a bit faster and has the ability to be more coordinated with his flow, and even has a red eye that moves across his visor to tie into the much more sci-fi theme. The show follows your typical message episodes with stuff like racism towards actual races, but also anti-robot sentiments.
Let OCP know we want their robots off the streets.
PTSD, classism, environmental danger, terrorism, and even workplace prejudice. The show looks like an 80s cartoon, but I feel it leans more towards real Ghostbusters than G.I. Joe in looks, if that makes sense. The voice cast includes Robert Boxsteele as RoboCop, Susan Roman as Lewis, and Harvey Atkin as a couple other voices amongst a few other voice actors. Atkin may be the most famous, at least for a certain generation, as he also voiced Bowser in multiple Mario Bros. Cartoons. The creative team was spearheaded by Rich Fogel, who helped write for shows like DuckTales, Muppet Babies, and The New Adventures of Batman, amongst others. While the show only lasted 12 episodes, it's actually pretty fun. It's slightly more mature than your typical kids show, but it's still very much aimed at a younger audience. It has some good callbacks to the movie, and while it doesn't have any of the voice cast from the original film, it has the feel of an amalgamation of children's TV and RoboCop. The animation is solid, and it's a perfectly acceptable version of our favorite Detroit police officer. The villains range from bad guy humans to other robots made by the same guy that made Ed 209, with the aforementioned Clarence Boddicker coming back in what would end up being the final episode, along with 3 new cop action heroes to help fight crime.
Ace Jackson, Wheels Wilson, Third Man Barnes.
This, of course, would lead to Kenner action figures, which was almost assuredly more profitable than the TV series, and unfortunately, that series has never been made into physical media stateside, with only a couple UK releases. While it was a Marvel animation production, don't expect it to show up on Disney Plus anytime soon. It is, however, very free on YouTube, even if the quality isn't anything to shout about. It's worth checking out as a forgotten piece of history and for robo-completionists everywhere.
You are all under arrest.
Just 10 years later, we would get a very different version of RoboCop with RoboCop Alpha Command. This also ran only 1 season, but instead of 12 episodes, we were gifted, and I use the term loosely, with 40 episodes. This is a very different type of show, and unfortunately, I don't mean that for the better. While the 88 version felt very much of its time in terms of animation and style in a good way, this is the Street Sharks or Mutant League of the Orion RoboCop universe, even failing to match the enjoyment of some of the lesser video games. Also, I didn't mean to use Street Sharks as a pejorative. Those toys rule. RoboCop Alpha Commando was developed by Eric and Julia Lewand, who also had their hand in all-time classics like X-Men the Animated Series, The Tick, Chip and Dale, Exo Squad, God I miss Exo Squad, and even lesser stuff that's still fun like Mummies Alive. This time it was in conjunction with MGM Animation Studios and something called Fireworks Entertainment. Cartoon shows in the 90s were big business, and even if you had a miss like this show, you could just as easily come up with a massive hit like, well, just about every other show I listed that they worked on before this. The show takes place after the movies in the year 2030, where RoboCop has been reactivated after a 5-year hiatus to help a government agency called Alpha Division with their Cobra-ass enemies called DARK, which is the Directorate for Anarchy, Revenge, and Chaos, which sounds like it should be led by Dr. Evil himself, if we're being honest. These adventures take Robo not only all over the country, but also all over the world to help stop any dark plots that arise. RoboCop is voiced by David Sobolov, who may be most famous for the mid-2010s voice of Drax in several Marvel animation projects, and the other voice actor of note is Dean Haglund as the hippie sandal-wearing Dr. Niemer, who activates and upgrades RoboCop for his missions. Dean has showed up in a ton of stuff, including other voice work, but come on, he's also in The Lone Gunman and The X-Files, so that's super cool. Out is Ann Lewis, and in is Agent Nancy Minor, who is voiced by Akio Morrison. The show has its issues. I can deal with the animation style and voices that don't always land, as well as the subject matter of the episodes that are very of its time. It's the inconsistencies that take me out of it. There's no explanation of what happened to Ann Lewis, nor why RoboCop was decommissioned. The timeline jumps from 2020 to 2030 after the first episode, and at first RoboCop's son is in a flashback, but then he just shows up at the same age as the flashback, while he and his mom have different names from the movie? While that's later explained, it also doesn't make a whole lot of sense. While I understand the need for changes, heck, we're going to talk about Toxic Crusaders soon, and RoboCop is right on the top of the pile for grade A violence that needed to be changed, you can also change too much. They almost take the fun out of RoboCop. Some of the less egregious things done to the character are the fact that this is the only time on screen we don't get a human face Murphy sans his helmet, and it takes him out of Detroit. Two of the most endearing things about RoboCop are the fact that every now and then we get to see him as kind of a human when his mask is removed, and that he is the protector of a specific city, even getting a statue in real life. The biggest issue, however, is how the character is written. You can have different people portray RoboCop, but he still needs to be RoboCop. Not only is he a go-go-gadget kid's toy with all the extra tools and weapons that don't suit him, but he's also kind of a shitbag. As soon as he asked the doctor who the babe was,
Hello, Dr. Newmeyer. Who's the babe?
I knew we were in trouble. He has really cool, and that's in quotes, humor, and dialogue that make me want to watch RoboCop 3 to get a better version of this hero as a kid's property. Did I watch all 40 episodes? No. I watched enough to get a good idea of the show and even bounced around a bit to see how it evolved. And it really doesn't. That show also received its own toy line, which makes a lot more sense than the show from the late 80s, but even the toys weren't as good. If you're interested in an animated version of Detroit's finest cyborg cop, then watch the 12-episode run that's free on YouTube. I mean, this is also free on YouTube, but that one's better. If you need to explore more, then there are plenty of wonderful comic books and not so wonderful but still fun video games to take on. There's a reason these aren't available on any physical media or paid streaming service. Stay clear of them or there will be trouble.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.